Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. The United States is no longer just warning Korea about tariffs. It's ready to act. President Trump has called for restoring 25% reciprocal tariffs on Korean imports, and Korea's trade minister now says the U.S. is preparing formal measures as talks in Washington ended without a breakthrough. At the center is Korea's delay in passing a key investment law, a delay Washington sees as backpedaling on earlier trade commitments. While Coupang and digital platform rules weren't officially discussed, they still remain in the background. And with core industries like autos and semiconductors at stake, plus a hawkish Fed nominee signaling tighter U.S. policy, the pressure is even building. So how should Korea respond, and what comes next? For answers to this, we are joined in the studio by Kim Jin-il, Professor of Economics at Korea-U. A big welcome, Professor Kim.
Thank you for having me.
And also joining us online is Song Soo-young, Professor of Business and Economics at Chungang University. Good to see you, Professor.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start the discussion right away. First with Professor Kim. So like I've said, Seoul's Trade Minister Kim Jong-kwon, he went to Washington to solve the renewed tariff threat from Washington. But we hear that no clear agreement has been reached. Could you tell us what were the sticking points, and what do you think blocked the breakthrough?
So when MOU was formed several months ago, a few months ago, they exchanged the fact sheets, but it's not a official formal agreement on the date and every detail of it. And you mentioned that Trump transformed warning to action, and that's why he increased the tax rates, tariff rate back to 25%. And that's part of his transactionalism, I think. So that's the way he does business, and because he knows that Korea is very big in auto and semiconductor, and when the tariff rates are increased back to 25, Korea needs to move fast. And that's what he wanted from the get-go. And so that's how he's doing the business, and then he's back. Of course, the timing was not ideal from the Korean side, because we have been busy on the Congress. And also, personally for Mr. Kim, he was traveling Canada for official business with the chief of staff for helping the industry, especially the shipping industry. So, however, he had to fly from Canada to Washington to do this business. Now he's back to Korea, but that's the way the world is arranged these days, unfortunately.
Right, so it's quite a tough situation for South Korea's trade minister as well. But as for Washington's point of view, they highlighted that the stalled special act on U.S. investment, it was a major issue that led to this. Professor Song, so with domestic politics now a key factor in trade talks, is there a way to ease U.S. pressure without kind of reopening official negotiations?
Actually, when I look back the timeline of what has been changed for the President Trump's remarks about the Korea and the United States trade agreement, and the negotiation was undergoing, as the Professor Kim has mentioned, in early July last year, and then on the APEC meeting was emphasized by President Trump that he made a deal. Then, in addition to that, I have found some national security strategy which was published in November 2025, that clearly Trump had shown his intention how to treat Indo-Pacific areas differently from those countries in Europe and other Africa and some Middle Eastern countries. Clearly, United States aimed to become independent of manufacturing for the consumption goods imported from China, and some very important necessary goods such as autos and other lumbers or pharmaceuticals or semiconductors from Korea. But the total size itself is not much to the United States, considering the size of U.S. GDP. But considering the Trump's strategy, it has illustrated greatly is he emphasized that the declining value, depreciation of the US dollar is good for the United States. But the recent movement of exchange rate and Korean currency movement is opposite, would take the opposite way. So considering this situation and also the recent development between the tussles and spats between the United States and Canada and the United States and the European Union has become increasingly burdensome to Donald Trump. Then he has mentioned that then South Korea should make a pre-arranged promise to make an investment in the United States should be conducted, and then he consider maybe the Korean government or Korean National Assembly intentionally delay the approval of the pact. So that's why our Minister of Negotiation, Kim Jong-un, has mentioned that there is unnecessary misunderstanding. He mentioned that is about that issues. Therefore, that could be resolved, and also that's why the Finance Minister of the United States, Scott Bessent, has mentioned orally intervene the exchange rate depreciation for the Korean won. Therefore, considering that situation, we have to maintain not only in the middle of the recession, the reconciliation and the confrontation in some cases are needed. Then I'm going to talk more about how to confront effectively and also how to reconcile what areas should be we can take some reconciliatory position in the negotiation with the United States from the pressure from Trump administration.
Right, so we will definitely touch upon that as we continue our discussion. But before that, let's also talk about the topics. So during their talks, Minister Kim said the online platform Fair Trade Act and the Coupang issue weren't actually part of the discussion. But still, people continue to say that the Coupang issue could become a big trade variable. What are your thoughts on this, Professor Kim?
So I also think that such issues like Coupang issues or the online platform Fairness Act or Unpull Act in Korean is officially on the table. That's not how the official talks are gone. But however, as we heard from media, that many congressmen, U.S. Congress have mentioned the Coupang and the internet issues with Korea. But each country has its own legal structure. And it's natural for U.S. congressmen to talk on their side as Korean congressmen, and Korean media is talking on Korean side as well. So that's natural. So we have to separate the issues between what's done in the national table, in Korean media and Korean legislature, the same in the U.S., against the official trade talks on the table. And that's the way trade talks are being done. That's true as we saw from the Korean-U.S. FTA many years ago, and other official issues whenever the trade negotiation is concerned. So that's the way we dealt with it before, and it's even way we do more these days with the Coupang and other more transnational issues.
Right, that's what we're really hoping for domestic issues to be separate from tariff negotiations, of course. Now back to the trade talks. So if tariffs actually go up, the auto industry would definitely take a big hit. So with added pressure to invest in North America, Professor Song, how do you think Korean automakers should adjust to the situation?
One way is one side could be confrontation, the other side could be reconciliation. In order to achieve the reconciliation, the best way is to depreciate Korean won against the US dollar. Then the automakers who, even when they are imposed by as much as 25%, then that could be alleviated, the effect of the tariff could be alleviated due to some depreciation of Korean won. But that is not an option because United States and Trump administration is very keen and watch out whether there is some kind of potential manipulation of exchange rate in order to remove the burden of the tariff. Then, on the other hand, the confrontation would be just accept 25% increase the auto price, then accept the reduction of the consumption in the United States or purchase of the Korean autos. Then, how to overcome for Hyundai and Kia? They must expand their sales and diversify their sales to the India and China and other countries. That is exactly shown, illustrated in the National Security Strategy published in last year, November, by United States and the White House in the U.S. That says, in that book, that says exactly that United States is going to encourage China and Korea and Japan, other very strong Asian countries who export too much to the United States. They must find some alternative ways to export their products. So to that regard, we can say the Hyundai and the Kia, just when in the worst case, the 25% of increased the tariff, then they bear the burden of the reduced consumption and sales in North America or United States. Hyundai Kia must find some alternative places, such as Canada and China and maybe India and other countries, to sell the Korean autos. So that is one way to overcome. And otherwise, not much to reconciliate this situation.
So expanding import destinations would also be helpful in this situation. But what about semiconductors, Professor Song? South Korea, we initially was promised the most favored nation treatment like Taiwan, but it seems as though the renewed tariff risk is sparking concerns about the semiconductor sector again. What do you think should be done to prepare for that?
Actually, even though we have the United States promised to keep some most favored nations treatment for South Korea, but I don't think it could be guaranteed. And then I don't think Trump is eager to keep the promise. Anyway, Trump administration find some excuses to revert or convert and change the promise. Therefore, the best one is as long as the United States is trying to impose a tariff, then reciprocally, we make a promise of investment of $350 billion investment in the United States with the $200 to $150 in kind and $200 billion in cash. Those are, given that the tariff remains as low as 15% and retain the status of most favored nation, then if the United States violates, then the Korean government, they could withdraw, or they do not make an investment in the United States anymore, because as long as the United States do not keep the promise. So to that regard, still Samsung and other SK Hynix, because United States is still in demand of some advanced semiconductors from Korea and Taiwan. That is definitely true. Therefore, I don't think that will effectively they could United States just impose the high tariff, and then it means just a higher price for semiconductors, for the manufacturing cost is increased in the United States. Then we have particularly Samsung and Taiwan, such as NVIDIA, they are eager to sell the HBM, the advanced semiconductors in China. Then U.S. must allow that. So that is one way to circumvent the difficulties and the ordeals imposed by United States.
Thank you for your opinion on that, Professor. Now, let's turn a little bit to U.S. monetary policy, Professor Kim. So we hear that Kevin Warsh, who's known for his hawkish stance, has been tapped as the next Fed chair. How do you think the direction of the Fed would differ under his lead, and what would that mean for U.S.-South Korea alliance?
You mentioned hawkish stance for Kevin Warsh, and actually he was a governor, one of the 7 governors of the Federal Reserve from 2006 to 2011. So U.S. was undergoing the financial crisis at the time, and he has a pretty big role there because he was an expert on Wall Street. Usually Federal Reserve or central bank does not need too much information about the financial market because financial markets are working pretty well. But around 2008, just the opposite had happened, and financial market was not working at all or barely working. So that's why a central bank intervened to each market very specifically. And that's when he was showing his hawkish stance. At that time, Federal Reserve was helping every market separately. And since Kevin Warsh was working in a financial market before he was joining the White House and then the Federal Reserve, he was against the idea of a central bank helping too much. That's why he was hawkish at that time. But now he's back to the Federal Reserve as a chair in a sort of normal situation relative to 2008. And will he'll keep that hawkish stance or not, that's to be seen. So the volatility of the markets on Friday in the US and today in Korea as well is kind of associated with his stance. I think that's about too much of a causality mistake, I think. Of course, it's related. I do agree, I admit. But whether he's hawkish or not, he is likely to be hawkish, but that's too much of an extension of the logic at the moment.
Too much concern we're having right now.
Yeah, but whoever the new, it's understandable because the new guy is coming on, and he was not the forerunner the last couple of months, and suddenly he came up because a few days ago when Kevin Hassett is off the list, people are talking about Rick Reader, the Black Rock guy, for a few days, but now he's not. The answer, is the Kevin Warsh, and he was now older. He was 36 when he was a Federal Reserve governor. He was a very young guy then. Now he's younger than most other Federal Reserve governor, but he's not older than 36. Now he has his own role, and then I'm quite interested how a new guy, when he was set into the Federal Reserve chair, how he will do. But he was not the first non-PhD economist because Powell was not an economist either. And Powell has gone through that, what they called education at the Federal Reserve, pretty well. So I hope Kevin Warsh is doing the same thing.
But another thing that many people are concerned about is that this Kevin Warsh, he's an outside director of the shareholder in Coupang's Americas unit. And of course, we are aware that Coupang is under fire currently after a major data leak involving Korean customers. So in light of that controversy, what kind of message or meaning do you think Warsh's Coupang connection actually send to the current, trade situation?
I hope it is not sending any concrete message on the trade negotiation or trade issues at all. To understand it, we have to see the filings of their board meetings. I'm pretty sure they will file the board meeting minutes pretty regularly and in detail. And it does include possibly some sentences he may have said during the meetings. And we have to see that. But I think he's professional enough, not to associate the issues when he was the exterior, the board member, versus when he was running a central bank of a government, which happens to be the strongest government of the world. And he's much bigger than that.
Right, of course. We will look forward to that. Now, so all of this, taking all of this together, tariffs, investment, currency, and monetary policy. Professor Song, what kind of long-term strategies do you think the South Korean government and businesses would have to plan from right now?
For South Korean economy, it's very difficult to make a forecast of the long-term policy, because now we underwent the global trade and the global economy underwent a very different situation. Clearly, the United States focus on the Western Hemisphere, and then they treat European unions as a not anymore some reliable partner. Then European Union also, they could raise some kind of anti-coercion instrument to counter the Trump administration's bully against the European Union. So many will change, but South Korea's current state, the most important status should remain, keep some kind of mixed strategy equilibrium, which means mix up of the confrontation and reconciliation. So this is very difficult to maintain the balance. So to that regard, the current South Korean government needs very discretion and also very agility and tenacity to keep maintaining the balanced position between United States and China, India, and even Russia and the European Union, because we have no room to lose any opportunity.
Right, so we have to keep a very cautious and balanced stance right now. A very strong point to end the discussion tonight. Thank you so much for your insights, Professor Song.
Thank you.
And of course, Professor Kim, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.